Hello and welcome to this instructions video for the TanukiWorks HPA MP5 magazine adapter for KCO2. Let's start by having a look at all the parts that you get with your kit. A 4 and a 6mm airline, the CNC aluminum internals, the lower half of the shell, the top half of the shell, the magazine release, the wedge, the pin blocker, and the valve tool. You also have this plastic bag that has really small parts that are easy to lose. The first thing that you want to do is to wash both halves of the shell to remove any excess 3D printing powder, because you do not want that in your BB filling tube. You can use soap and a Q-tip to wash that BB filling tube. Finally, dry your parts with a piece of cloth or anything that will not leave any fiber residue on the parts. As I mentioned earlier, the plastic bag contains some very small parts, so it's a good idea to empty it in a cup. For this build, you will need some tools and some parts that you can salvage from one of your stock magazines, a valve and a rubber magazine gaskets. For the tools, some pliers, some Allen keys, and some wrenches. Let's start by assembling the valve tool. First, you should clean the excess powder that may still be in it. Then you can insert the other half of it and make sure it's all nice and flush. Finally, insert the tiny pins, and that's it, you have the valve tool. In case you may need some more torque, there is a hole that you can use with a small Allen key. Now let's assemble the magazine release onto the lower half of the shell. For this you need the smaller of the two remaining pins. Insert it into the magazine release to make sure there is no excess powder left. Then push the spring into the lower shell, place the magazine release and insert the pin. It should stick out a bit, allowing you to remove it with a pair of pliers if necessary. Finally, attach the pin blocker and pay attention to the position of the cut corner. Here it is on the top left. Next is the internal parts assembly. First, screen the plug. It comes with an O-ring, there is no need to ever tighten it, and also do not lubricate that O-ring. Then you can use your new valve tool to insert the valve into the aluminum block. Make sure one of the valve holes is facing upwards. You have two air tube connectors. Which one you use depends on your choice of air tube diameter. For the 4mm tube, you need the bigger one. For the 6mm tube, you need the smaller one that you can see right now. Now let's put it all together. Insert the wedge and make sure the face that stays up is facing upwards. Then you can insert the rubber gaskets. Insert the aluminum block into the top shell by pushing onto the valve. Finally, assemble the lower half. Insert the pin after making sure the holes of the two halves are aligned. Make sure it's all nice and flush. Then insert the square bolts along with their hex screws, and do not over tighten them. The 6mm line may need some strength to insert into the barbed fitting. The 4mm one is easier to insert and to remove, just make sure it's round shaped. If you want to use the 6mm line, it is a good idea to grind up a bit of metal from the receiver, so that it's not too tight on the airline. Now let's insert the kit into the receiver. First, cock the thing. Then push onto the original mag release for the kit to go up. When it is in place, you should see the original mag release resetting a bit. You can pull on it to make sure it's locked in place. For those who got some secure connectors, they are quite simple to assemble. The 4mm ones come with an O-ring, whereas the 6mm ones do not, so it's a good idea to apply some PTFE tape before screwing them in. For both, you need to unscrew the locking ring, then push the air tube onto the nipple and put the locking ring back on.